Hey guys, welcome to the first episode of Sketch and Chat. It's going to be an installment in my series on my YouTube channel where basically I have someone who comes in, draws with me, either I'm drawing or he's drawing, and it's only going to be about 30 and 40 minutes, but it'll be a cool way to get a good insight on how I sketch and how another person might sketch. And so my guest today is Satoshi Kamanaka. I believe he's currently living in the Philippines, but I believe you're originally from Japan, right? So can you tell the people how you ended up in the Philippines?
I came here to live with my girlfriend, so that's how I ended up here. But it's been great because it's just like it, as well as being a move to another country, it was a move out of my parents' house. So yeah,
that's always good.
There's that too. So
what do you see the differences in living in the Philippines as in comparison to living in Japan? So obviously there's like a technological difference and an economical difference and how people live and everything. So what can you say is different about those two countries?
What would I say is different? The weather for one is pretty different, but I guess people look at you because you look a little different, you know.
I guess because you're Asian, interesting. You're like a different kind of Asian, right? And then they're like,
so,
what?
That's yeah, it's funny though, because even though people will stare at me because I look kind of different, they'll end up talking to me in the local language, and it's like, hey, why do you think I understand if you're gonna everybody's staring at me like this? But to be honest,
so do you find yourself? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sorry, go ahead. I haven't been around too much, honestly, to see much of the differences, but I guess it's kind of crazy, but it's really crowded here. There's like so many people everywhere. Like I thought, like, you know, Japan, it was pretty crowded with all the houses really close together. You don't really have any yards in Japan. Like, you know, you have a few meters worth of your house, but here's just like that doesn't even exist, and it's just like everything is so compact. It's crazy. I guess that's what I've been noticing. I don't know how to say stuff without, like, maybe I'll be saying bad stuff. Like, shit, okay. But basically it's just, you know, Japan is, I guess, pretty well off and stuff. And I guess here you can really feel the difference between, like, the rich and poor, you know, and there's, like, you know, because there's, like, these really high condos, and then there's some people that are living underneath the highways, you know, kind of thing like that. And it's just, like, you can see the disparity so, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, Japan is one of those countries that has a pretty large middle class, you know, and so it's just like, you don't see this huge difference all of a sudden, you know, everything's just kind of about the same. And then if you go to, like, it's big, but yeah. So that's something I've noticed since coming here.
Okay, that's pretty cool. I also noticed that your English is very good. So how do you learn English? Because you sound like you could be from, like, Costa Mesa, which is like a place like in Orange County.
Yeah, well, actually that's because my dad is a little complicated, but he's Australian, but he technically is American, but he changed his nationality to Australian. And I was in a homeschool environment, so basically I learned English from him and learned like that. So that's why actually English is much closer to my native language. And it's really kind of embarrassing, but honestly my Japanese isn't as sharp as my English, so there's a trade-off.
Okay, so how long have you been living in Japan?
Basically all my life. Okay. When I was when I was like 1 and 2, I lived in Taiwan and stuff. But other than that, it's just all been so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how'd you Taiwan, man, Mr. International right here. Jeez.
Yeah, it's there's that. I did travel quite a bit when I was younger and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this is like becoming like more about my life and not really about the art. What are you going to be drawing today, man?
So I guess the topic for this episode would be tribal. So I'm trying to think of a tribal girl. So lately I've been very inspired by East Asian tribes. So people who didn't really assimilate to living in cities, and
Right.
their costumes
This is kind of
kind of like
yeah.
mountain people in like China. You see them in China, Vietnam, Thailand, and even like the indigenous populations of Taiwan and Japan as well, right? So you have the Anu. Do you know what I'm talking about, right? The people.
I think I know it.
The people who live in Hokkaido. Like the.
I get it. Like the kind of indigenous people of their areas. I see. So it's like, oh, that's cool. That's cool.
So I'm kind of like combining all of those visual aspects into one sketch.
I see.
Yeah.
So is it like, do you collect a lot of reference before you start this kind of thing, or is it just like, do you have enough of a, I guess, mental library to just, okay, I'm going to combine all these things together, or?
So that's what I'm doing right now. I was looking at pictures earlier today, and I'm kind of combining everything into kind of like one sketch now. And I'm not really doing a complex pose because...
Get that. But yeah, I've been seeing your sketches. Really cool. Actually, I would love to say that, it kind of, I guess when in my head, like when I think tribal, I'm thinking like, oh yeah, it's these guys that, they go bare chested and they got all the teeth around their neck and stuff like that. But this is cool. Like this is kind of reminding me a little bit of Mongols and a bit like Tibetan, like those, or, like you were saying, those Chinese mountain tribes and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure.
So
yeah. That was like what I was this is what I'm trying to get the picture through. But I'm trying to like kind of create my own, if there happened to be some sort of like tribe out there that would exist in this region, but totally original, So you have to like take all these familiar ideas that already exist in real life, and I think successful character design on that hinges very much on familiarity. Like, I would say for successful character design, in my opinion, you have to have like at least 75% of familiarity, right? If you're throwing a character out there that is so alien to people, they can't really, identify.
I get it. It's
yeah.
You can't be just original for being original's sake, because everybody's just like, what is this? They won't have anything to connect with, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's a good thing I've learned. I forgot where I read that. I totally stole that from someone, but I do not know who. So
I heard it in various places, and
yeah.
So I don't know. As soon as more than one person is saying it, I feel like you're pretty okay to say it. It's just like it's not one person's thing anymore.
I think it goes with like no.
So,
what's
sorry,
that? Go ahead.
Curious, what would you say? What design elements would you say ties this thing together? Like, what would make after observing it and stuff? What do you observe makes this tribal feel, like this nomadic feel?
Definitely the shapes. So I think the shapes are very important, because if you look at these pictures of these tribal people, so all you need to do is like Google like Chinese mountain people, or I don't know, like, was it Ainu from Japan? You can see the shapes. It's just magnificent shapes, and you can take these ideas, because if you haven't noticed, I start drawing with just the outside shape and then move my way in. So I feel like the silhouette is so important to describing the character and its personality and stuff like that.
So you would say that out of anything, like the most important part would be like the silhouette to getting it across. Like it's the most important.
Yeah, I would say so. I would say 40% silhouette, the rest shapes, and like maybe like 10% anatomy and stuff. Because you can make wonky anatomy but have really good shape design and it'll read really well, you know. But you still have to know like the rules before you break them. Is the thing.
Are you noticing like I'm just curious, like are you noticing like any similarities between like all these different tribe things? Like do they all wear shawls, or do they all like, you know, have these different ornaments? I'm looking at these different things, but interesting headdresses, a lot of these tribes and stuff.
Yeah, I do notice that because, so just from myself reading history, I know that the like the Yunnan area, the southern Chinese area region, please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I know it was known for its bronze and like rare metal deposits. So a lot of tribes, they had access to these metals very early on in their development. I love how this is becoming like a history show or something like that, but that's why they all of those tribes in the southern Chinese region or Southeast Asia region, they all use a lot of metals in their dresses, right, or in their ornaments, and it's because that was just like what was growing on that was what was available in the mountains at the time. And so that's why you put that sense of familiarity. You're like, okay, if someone who's just slightly familiar with these tribes from this region, you know, and they'll know that they use a lot of metals in their ornaments, and they're like, okay, I get this, you know, it's kind of like a subconscious thing. Like I totally get that this character is from that region.
I see. That's cool. That's cool. That makes me feel like, man, there's so much thought that goes into character design. I really definitely need to try pushing that a bit more.
Yeah, but your paintings are awesome. So I honestly need to learn to render more because I currently hate rendering. It's so boring. But you know what? It's something you have to learn. You know?
I guess so. I really just I don't feel like I've learned really much how to render. It's just you just it's kind of like an extension of drawing from really. And, I'm so jealous of your lines, man. They're like so good. And all your shapes. I'm so jealous. But it's like, I don't know. It's always great to see your characters and stuff. The shapes are so fun. Lots of life.
So actually, what helped me a lot was recently, you know, the Inktober. It helped me so much in knowing where to pop detail areas of where we want a lot of attention in your character, and just like playing around with like soft brushes and hard brushes and stuff like that, and knowing where to put them. So typically I used to just use one brush, right, like a hard round, just for sketching. So now I'm moving over to like using both the soft brush and a hard round brush.
That's interesting. Like, I guess I've been learning how to mix in both of those things as well. As I remember starting off, there was like this voice in the community where they're like, "Hey, just use that one hard brush, and you know, like make all your painting with this one hard brush," you know. And it was just like, okay, I guess I have to do that. And it was like, it's very not with any sort of gradation. And then I realized later on that it's okay to play around a little bit with different things. And I guess, of course, hard brush is great to start off with.
Yeah.
Goes on. You just sort of have to think about the practicality of what we're trying to get across. Anyways.
Right. I think you just need to find what you like, you know. If you really like that textured look, then obviously you just can't just use hard round, right? But I think if you really like that super polished, you know, like those Chinese mobile game art stuff. I think you really have to go towards using the hard round, because I think that's hard round and soft round.
That's true. That's true. They definitely have that look to them. That you know that it can only be that brush.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny because I think they're all sharing like the same brushes. Like, I see like the same kind of characters. It just might be like how they design their stuff, but there's so much samey going on in
I get
Chinese
that.
art nowadays.
It's funny because it almost feels like they have like a certain like they all came together and decided all together like, hey, this is what our art is gonna look like, you know? Because
I know
you can feel like it has like a kind of similar rendering style and all this stuff. I guess they must have like some kind of school, you know, or
I think
it's kind of weird.
So what I think it is because is in China, a lot of the artists stream, and I think the ability that the artists stream and they show what they're doing, it makes it they're like more widely available to an audience, right? Because if I say wanted to draw like Craig Mullins, right? He doesn't have any process videos out, right? He did a couple for like I think Massive Black or Noman back in the day.
Right.
But that thing is like ancient. It's like 2006, 2007, right?
Wow, that is a while ago.
Yeah. So you're seeing his process back then, and if you really want to draw like him, or you want to like kind of study his style, you have to just look at his art, right? Stuff that's readily available online. But a lot of, I think you see this with I think a lot of like Japanese artists. I think they do a lot of streaming too, right? I think on
that's
like
true.
Nico TV.
Nico TV. I'm not sure if I heard that one, but actually I'm going to see that around.
Nico Doga.
Oh, is it like a compilation of like a lot of Japanese artists during?
It's just like I think it's just like YouTube. I think it's just like YouTube for Japan.
All right.
You could put like comments and stuff, and it like shows up on the screen. I see this in a lot of like Chinese videos or streams as well. But I guess
that's a.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Well, I've seen those channels with all those Chinese paintings, and they have all the Chinese narration and stuff like that, and it's just like, oh man, I wish I could understand what they're saying.
So right now I'm just kind of focusing on the face. I really haven't gotten down to the body yet, but I can see that she's a little kind of misaligned. Because I haven't drawn the rest of the feet yet, but I'll get to it. You know, I like to kind of like jump around when I'm drawing something. So I see that her bangs are a little salon eraser.
Will you put anything in her hair, like beads or something?
You know what? That is a good idea, so I will. In fact, I'm going to put it right now.
So, how much would you say do you have in your head,
Right.
like before you start drawing the characters? Like, do you already have a pretty good idea of like, okay, well, this is the kind of character. Like how much of an idea of the character do you have before you start drawing it, and how much is just like, you know what? I think this would look cool drawing, so I'm gonna add this in. Like,
that's
what would you say is the ratio?
That is a really good question, because I feel like I never stick with my original idea. I'm like, oh man, I have this really cool idea in my head, but I end up never sticking with it. It always ends up just being like a compilation or a collection, which is spur of the moment kind of decisions that I make, and I'm like, that's a good decision, and then I go from decision to decision, and then I end up with something like this, you know. Like, I initially, when I was drawing this, I had in my head, I wanted a girl, and she was like wrapped in like a tribal blanket, but that blanket became more of like a cape, and then I added a belt, and now she's gonna have a bag, and you know, it's just, and a lot of these
I see.
assets, yeah. So a lot of these assets are like things I have already drawn in other characters. So you can go through my other drawings, and then I'm like totally reusing assets. But hey, if it works, just use it again. You know.
That makes sense. Totally agree. That's interesting to know, because I'm always kind of curious, like how much do people, and how much of it is just like I scribble and then I see this thing and scribble, you know, and okay, I'm gonna pull this out more, and you know, play with that and sort of expand. So that's cool to know.
Yeah, I totally definitely kept the like her face. I definitely wanted that kind of hairstyle where you can tell that barbershops or salons don't exist in this place. You know, they totally just cut it with
Right.
like a sharp knife or an axe.
Okay, and just cut right across kind of thing.
Yeah. You know how like your mom cut your hair when you were a kid? If you're Asian, you
Oh
know
no,
exactly what I'm talking about, by the way.
that's what we're talking about. I always wanted to grow my hair so long when I was a kid, but no. Yes, the bowl cut.
So how long did it take you to grow your hair out? Because if you guys probably haven't seen Satoshi, but he has like long, beautiful, lush hair, and it is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. I don't think I could do that because I know the period from growing your hair from short to long is absolutely brutal.
Yeah, it helps that I hardly went out at all, but I think it took only about a year and a half, maybe, actually.
Oh, okay. So it took about a year and a
It's
half to
pretty
get it that
fast.
long?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm kind of jealous. You're living my dreams of having long hair.
Why don't you do it, man? You can do it.
I can't imagine just getting my hair longer and longer at work. If you were gonna think I'm like a nut, they probably really think I am a nut.
It's you have to go through the process, man. It's just like it's got to get worse before it gets better.
That's true. I imagine it's like a rite of passage. You have to like go through this suffering of growing your hair out, and then finally you are worthy of donning the long Jesus hair.
Maybe so. All right. I'm gonna ask, like, I know this isn't completely related to what you're drawing right now, but I'm gonna ask like a few questions that I had that I'm curious about.
Okay, sure.
Like, what got you into drawing, or are you one of those people, or are you one of those artists that are like you just been drawing ever since you know, like you were a kid, and then you picked up a pencil and you just never put it down, kind of thing, or so, or you like how did you start drawing? What made you decide, you know, to keep doing it?
That is a very good question because I actually don't remember why myself. I just like found out I ended up here and I just want to draw, and it ends up being fun for me. You know, I think the biggest part is that it is fun. Drawing is fun, and I actually, so before I get to how I started, is how I almost stopped several times, and the only way, and not the only way, but the only reasons why I ever wanted to stop is because it stopped being fun for me, right? And the times
Right.
when I got back into drawing after those periods of like, "Ah, I don't think I can do this art thing anymore, right? Was
Right.
that,
Right.
yeah, and it was that I would go back in, but I would just do the same exact thing that made me hate drawing in the first place. So just doing things like that would be like doing endless studies, just not really, you know, not asking yourself the question, why am I doing this in the first place? You know.
Right. Right.
So the question
So
I answered was that, hey, you know what? I want to just make really cool characters, you know, and it's fun for me, and it's kind of a win-win. And eventually, it kind of evolved into I want to show people how to make these cool characters, right? And so that's how this YouTube channel started.
oh, that's great. That's great. So
So I guess I didn't really answer how I got started.
yeah, that's all right, because I mean, I think it can be kind of difficult, especially if you've been doing it for quite some time. There's no exact date that you decide like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do. It sort of happens as time goes on.
Yeah, exactly.
So so that's great. I would like. I guess you didn't. You kind of answered, but not really. But I guess another question I would like to ask is like, you're really good. So like, did you have to go to art school, or do you have some kind of form of education? Like, how did you learn to do what you did? Like,
Okay.
how do you learn?
So first thing, I'd like to thank you for even calling me good because I feel like I'm still down in the trenches trying to dig my way up. How I got good, I don't know. I think it's just pure um, diligence, pure discipline. I think a big part of becoming better is seeing where your bad habits are. So I saw that one of my largest bad habits that I was making early on was that I was very stubborn to anything. The first 2 years I started drawing, so I probably started taking art seriously in towards the end of college. So I'm 25 now, so I want to say 21 or 22. And one of the big mistakes I was making in the beginning is I was being very stubborn. I'm still stubborn now. I'm still trying to get over it. Is that I had these weird like obsessions with like I wanted to paint and draw just like how the masters did, but on a computer. So I wouldn't use Control Z. I would paint everything on one layer, and I would just use like one brush. Just like, and I would just do endless amounts of master studies, and I feel like that wasn't really get. And it took me like 2 or 3 years before I realized I wasn't getting me anywhere, and it really made me unhappy because I was just doing endless amounts of copying, right? And I think the key word there is copying. I think my advice for artists that are just starting out is don't be obsessed with copying. If you want to be good at drawing from imagination, you have to practice drawing from imagination. And when you're copying, I would keep that for studying. And when you do copy, what you're doing is you're really building up your what's that word when you have the images in your head? Your visual library. So I think that's a very important part of being able to draw from imagination. So you have to really separate these two activities, or that's how I do it, anyways. So I separate the activity of drawing from imagination and studying, right? In studying, I'll do copies of other artists I like. But in practice, like drawing from imagination, if you want to get good at drawing from imagination, again, you just have to put in the hours of drawing from imagination, right? You can't just magically, like, do all these studies one day, right? And then come out and say, you know what? I'm going to draw this character from imagination. I guarantee you're going to have a bad time. But it's okay because a lot of people are like that. And you're going to have a bad time, but it will only get better from there. That's my words of wisdom. It will only get better from there. You're going to create like
Lots of bad drawings.
Tons of bad. I have so many bad drawings. I'll actually post my old Tumblr and like all my old sketchbooks here for you guys to see, like sketchbooks as in like digital sketchbooks. So I'll even dig up my old concept art one for you guys to see.
Sure, lots of people would like to see that.
Yeah, because I think for a lot of people they see like artists, right? But a lot of artists don't post all their studies or their sketchbook stuff, and they don't see where the practice pays off.
Yeah, where all the shitty drawings are. Excuse me. But yeah, all the really bad drawings.
Mm-hmm.
I can sort of understand that in defense of those artists. It's just there's so many. There's just too many to post. Like all of them. It's just like you're really just trying to get through all of them in some ways. I feel like there's just so many, like, and to post every single one would, it just kind of feel like a waste of time in a way.
Yeah, for sure. So I always found that digital sketchbooks are more for me.
Right.
So if I had the choice, I would only put everything on my Tumblr, because that's my digital sketchbook that I've been keeping up the longest. But I also have that kind of ego where I want to show people that this is like my progression, and I think that's kind of a good kind of ego, is you're showing people that all the hard work you're putting in, this is like something you've earned, like especially those legends on like concept art that you saw they put in hours and hours of work.
That's great. That's a like, and I guess I'm just gonna be asking some questions from like my point of view from when I was first starting out, and well, how much would you say, if I want to get good, like how much should I draw? Like how much should I draw? Because how much should somebody draw if they want to get good?
Every day, I think, is the answer. I know it's not like completely viable for some people who have like awful times in their jobs, or you just live in like kind of wonky situations, right? But if you are blessed with the ability to draw every day, like you're in neat mode, you should, and you want to be an artist, you should be drawing every day. But I want to kind of steer people away from those. I really wanted people to steer away from that mentality where you're like trying to find the fastest way to get good. Just take your time and it will come. That's how I found for me. I was rushing and I wasn't going to get anywhere. I was jumping around, and in this journey when you're like learning to draw, you're gonna have points where you might not be progressing as much as you want to be, but then you'll have points where you have breakthroughs, right? And unless you keep trying, you're never going to reach these points where your brain kind of your body kind of figures it out, and you have a breakthrough.
That's such a great point. I feel like so many, it will go through, I think as we all learn, we sort of go through all these stages, right? First we all I remember starting off thinking that, if I just drew like 10 minutes or if I drew like once a week even, I was like, wow, I drew a lot, and then,
yeah.
slowly
for sure.
I started to, is like, whoa, I draw every day now. Like, whoa, I am so hardcore. Like, I draw every day, and it was just like, and it took me a while to realize that, oh, wait a second, people that do this professionally, they do this all the time, like all day. And it took a while for me to get that. But as soon as I got that, I think I fell into that pitfall that you were talking about. Like, it's just like, oh, I gotta get good. Like, I really gotta get good, like so fast. Like, oh, I gotta try super hard, like I gotta get good now, or like I'm not gonna have a job and stuff like this. And I was super, super scared. But you learn really, honestly, if you're thinking like get good, you're not really focusing on the issues that you need to actually get good. You're not really observing things, you're not really understanding things, you're just thinking about getting good. And I think you're totally right when you say it's just like that doesn't help you.
Yeah, I personally think that's the biggest pitfall of
stay calm.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest pitfall of a lot of beginner artists, is that they just want to get good. Everyone wants to get good, but they don't realize that you have to put in a lot of hours and a lot of mileage. And I think that's the biggest thing, is just mileage. I think so. I'm gonna take a tangent real fast, and I think that an artist who practices only, say, he did all his work he did all the studying for Loomis, right? And he knows all, he's read framed inked front and back 3 times, and he's and he gets a job where he needs to draw up a comic, right? But he's never drawn a comic before.
Right.
Or he's only done his own webcomic, but he's never done like a real comic. He's only read about it, and he's only had these idealized visions about how to do it. And he goes up against a person who's been doing comics all his life, right? But the guy who's been doing all his comics all his life might not be as good, right? I'm saying like technically good, right? He might not know the best anatomy and stuff, but he just has all the mileage under him. And I guarantee you that person who has all the mileage underneath him, who's always been doing these things for say, in this case, comic books, right? He's failed so many times. He knows what works. He knows what doesn't. I guarantee you he can pop out that veteran can pop out that comic book or that web comic.
Right.
Right. Saying like way better than that beginner can ever do. Or that person who's never taken that step to do it.
That's very true, and I feel like I guess you have to just stay true to your motive, because I think we all. I shouldn't say that because I don't know what everybody's thinking, but at least for me, I remember starting off drawing. I really wasn't like, oh man, I'm gonna be an artist or something like this. Like I wanted to make comics, to be honest, and I guess that's your motive, but like it just sort of along the way I ended up wanting to get better drawing, but it's just like I feel like if you want to do something, you have to just go for it. And if you end up just going or like beating around the bush, you're just never gonna get to it, because I've never really gotten around to it. But brings up a great point, because there's so many things that do what you want to do in a sense, because what am I trying to say? It's just you're gonna learn the things that you have to learn essentially for that thing. You know what I mean? You don't learn how to do comic paneling by doing still life studies or something like that, or doing fine painting. You're not going to learn how to storyboard like that. You know what I mean? So yeah, and if you go directly for it, I'm sure you can learn. I mean, like the most important stuff you need to learn.
Yeah. So I guess that brings me to another point is I think one of the biggest things I realized lately is that my time to be able to do these things is quite short, right? I'm 25. Maybe in 4 more years I'll be married and I'll have kids, and I won't have time to do all I want. So I really had to limit my time to what I really want, right? Which is doing characters and doing like things like that, And I think in the past I was like so obsessed with being good at everything. I want to be good at environments. I want to be good at characters. I want to be good at concept art. I want to be good at robots. I want to be good at this. I want to be good at that. I want to be good at animation. I want to be good at comics. I think it's a little humanizing. You just step back and say, okay, what do I want to do, and what do I want to get good at?
Yeah, wow, that's great. That's such a great point. I feel like that's so difficult, though, isn't it?
Yeah, because you really want it all, right? You're like,
you want it all. Yeah, I want to do everything. I want to be good at everything, and especially I feel like, especially when you're younger, it's so much easier to see like all the possibilities, and at least for me, you just don't know how hard it is to get good at one thing, that you're just like, yeah, I can do everything, like that's not to say that you can't, but I feel like there are definitely rewards. I think you can be a little bit more rewarded for picking one single thing, just because you can see results much quicker, and then by getting results, it boosts your morale to continue doing it. Whereas if you spread yourself very thin between a lot of things, you never really to feel like, oh wow, I'm making so much progress, and you can be excited about it. I think that's what wears people a little bit thin when they try studying a lot of different things. But maybe that's a bit opinionated.
Oh yeah, so that brings me to it's back to a story of when I started.
All right, that's good. This is
Always,
what I want to hear.
I would do all these studies, but then when I actually went to drawing, I would just do something completely unrelated to the study. So, you know what I'm saying? I would do all these like masterpieces,
Yeah.
like Sargent, who I absolutely love, John Singer's Sargent. I just do countless amounts of master studies of John Singer Sargent. But then when I get to drawing my own stuff in my imagination, I'll just do like, fantasy characters, which obviously isn't a John Singer Sargent related thing, right? What I should have been doing is maybe studying people like Claire Wendling, Frazetta, Vance Kovacs, Justin Sweet, those guys who are like my big influences, So now that's what I do. I do studies of people who I really look up to.
It's funny because I don't think that's just you, because I feel like, wrong, but I feel like somehow we just want to, at least for me, I think I did it as like a defense mechanism. Like what I really wanted to do was comics, but what I ended up doing was like, well, you know what? I want to do comics, so I'm going to get really good at illustration. So when I get really good at illustration, that's somehow going to like rub off and make me good at comics. But that didn't really happen. I just got good at making illustrations, and that's all I make now. So it really pays to just go like, okay, what do you want, and then go for it. And I think a part of it is fear of failure. Like this is something that you really hold dear to, like whether it's comics or maybe you're into illustration, whatever you might be into, maybe it's concept art. It's just like, this is the thing that you want. So going after it is extra scary because you don't want to screw up, like, and if I screw up, then I can't do what I want, and then maybe I really am not good, and all those kind of things. So a little bit of like courage to just go straight for what you want.
Yeah, I think that that kind of like that moment you kind of get like these highs and lows, right? Where you have these moments where like, dang, maybe I am really that good, and then a month later you're like, what am I doing with my life at this point right now? You know what I'm saying?
It's amazing because I feel like it's just like, it's so standard. Like everybody goes through that feeling of like, I don't know if you know, and then like the next minute you're just like, what is this thing I drew?
Yeah. So now I think now all I really like chalk that up to is like, all right, you know what? It's just part of the ironing out process. So what I mean by the ironing out process is like, you're gonna get this pair of this dress shirt. It's all wrinkled up, right? It's a dress shirt, and you really want it to be. This is just a bad analogy, but I say this analogy for like a lot of things that take time to be good at, right? And you really need to get all those wrinkles out, but it takes time to get all those wrinkles out, right? And you really have to be patient, because if you ever iron a shirt and you go fast, you're not gonna have a good time. So you're gonna have to go through all those bumps to get rid of all those wrinkles, and then. I'm sorry for the poor analogy, but I say it for everything.
It's okay, man. That's fair. But like, I totally get it, man. It just takes time. It really does. It just takes time. And I guess you're going through those ups and downs of like, oh, I'm so good, and like, oh no, I'm so bad. It's just like it just keeps moving you forward. Like, the part where you're like, oh, I'm good. It kind of gives you morale to keep on going through the hard times. And then when you feel bad, it's just like kind of like kicking your butt to be like, oh my gosh, I gotta try harder. I gotta do better than this. And I think it's just it's kind of a wave sort of pushes you forward.
Yeah, and you know what I think is that you'll never get over that feeling of being not good, right? I think you'll always see yourself or your art as like not enough, and I think that's a good thing, because that means that there's something further above you, right? And that's why I think that I don't ever want to be the best, because I want someone to be better than me so I can reach that person and then someone better than him so I could reach that person and then someone better than him. You know what I'm saying?
That's great. That's great. That's so true. It's all about perspective. Sometimes it can be difficult, like to not get discouraged, by super great stuff. But that's just such a great way to look at it. Like, man, this is the goal, and the thing to learn from, and improve from. That being said, okay, I had this question. It's backtracking a little bit.
Okay.
But we were saying how, like you were saying how it's just like, okay, when you do your studies, you do your studies, but it's like it's really important to be able to draw from imagination. So I would say like, how do if I'm starting out and I want to be able to draw from imagination, but when I draw from imagination, I just really suck, like I'm terrible, and so it's out like between, trying to make my own thing from imagination and studying that, or is it the same thing, or I just have to keep trying to draw from imagination? What can I do, or is there anything that will benefit me when I draw from imagination? Do you have any tips for that?
That's a good question, because I feel like my ability to draw from imagination just kind of came out of nowhere, right? But that's how I feel. But then when I look back at my old stuff, I can see where the improvements hit, right? And I think the easiest answer is just got to keep going at it. First, it's going to take very long for you to be able to create a character from imagination, right? But it's just going to become faster and faster and faster. I think I can make a parallel with that with figurative drawing or figure drawing, is because when I started out drawing figures, it would take me literally like 2 days to draw a person, right? I would get this ref from the internet, right? And I would draw it, and I would like draw every single like twist and turn of that person. It would take me like 2 days, And then after months went by, it came a little faster. I knew what mistakes not to make. It came a little faster, and then faster, and then finally, I'm able to, draw a human from imagination. Just like in my head, I already know what that looks like. And so you really have to move from being able to do something from reference to being able to do something from imagination. So kind of like splicing each part of what you've already done. So, for instance, I did this bag, or this kind of like bag strap already. I've done that before, right?
Right.
I hear a crazy motorcycle.
I'm sorry. Sorry, we will.
So
They're
I steal a lot of assets for myself because I know they work in a design stance, right?
Right.
And so, from an outsider's point of view, it might look like everything's just coming from out of nowhere, right? But it's not. And so, to get better from drawing from imagination, you have to draw from life, and that is the key missing part that a lot of people do not do.
Nice. That's great. So, I guess it's just gotta keep at it.
Yeah, that's basically it. Don't underestimate the power of mileage, right? So that's what I tell people. I totally stole that quote from Craig Mullins. I think he said it in a Cgen post forums. He says it a lot too. So I really like Craig. I look up to that guy. So I like to read a lot of his old stuff.
Yeah, Craig is massive.
So
all right. Something I also like to know. If it's okay to ask, what would you say are your, maybe there's a lot, but what are your artistic inspirations? Who would you say inspires you to make the stuff that you make, or just what are you into these days?
Ooh, okay. So these days, that's an easy answer. These days, I'm really, really into Claire Wendling. I think you could see her stuff in a lot of my works, like kind of like her style, especially if you look through my Inktober works. I really, really like her stuff. It's just so flowy and simple, but it reads really well. And that's what I'm like, dang, I need to do that. You know, I can see that she's taking a lot of design inspirations from Muka. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Please don't like hang me.
I say it the same way, so I'm not gonna. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I see that she like how she does the like the contour lines and everything. That's just so good. You know, so that's my biggest inspiration recently. But my OG inspirations are like video game artists. So like Kinu Nishimura, she did like Street Fighter. She does a lot of Capcom stuff. The Vanillaware guys. So I think that's George Kamitani. Just like super stylized characters and stuff like that. As far as traditional guys go, I love John Singer Sargent. I mean, who doesn't, right?
That's true.
Can you find a person who hates John Singer Sargent? He's probably like, that guy probably isn't a normal person. He's probably an alien,
but
you know?
I don't hate him, but actually, in defense of I don't know in defense of who, but like I remember starting off that I didn't get it. I'm gonna go out here and a limb to be crucified, but I didn't get it when I was first starting off. Like I was like, I like anime, you know? And,
Same here.
I did not fully appreciate Sargent first starting off, and I was just like, I just want to draw anime, you know. And I did not. As time went on, you know, you just start to realize like, oh my god, this is really good, you know, and you know, understand it at more deep level, not just like because everybody's saying this person's good. It's just like you start to realize that, oh my goodness, what this person is doing is incredible, you know. And I think when that happens, like your appreciation grows as time goes on.
Oh, for sure. I used to like think Sargent's watercolor stuff was disgusting, but now I look back at it and I'm just like, this is absolutely incredible. You know, especially after trying watercolor myself. I only recently started trying watercolor, but after you do it, after you put yourself to what he had to go through, you're just like, wow.
Yeah, it's amazing. So something that people don't, actually I don't know if people do or don't, but something that I found recently is Sargent's figure drawings, and they are so solid.
Oh, like, yeah, for sure.
Honestly, if you ever have to make some or something from drawings or something, just check out Sargent's figure drawings because they are on point and amazing. But yeah. Okay, that's cool. So
so I guess for saying inspirations and stuff, and I know how you went into the what you wanted to draw out when you started. So when I started, I also really wanted to draw anime. I loved Fist of the North Star. Okay.
Are you serious?
Fist of the North Star and JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Like, okay, wow. I think all that was available to us at that time. I must have been like 19. That is a long time ago for me, right? I think it's like 6 years ago. I love Fist of the North Star, and I loved JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and I would just draw Kenshiro and Jotaro from like the third arc. I would just draw them, and I love them, and I love this kind of like beefy shonen type, like kind of art style. I don't know, but nowadays you see all I just draw is like cutesy girls and like elves and stuff, you know. So it definitely changed from there.
Oh my gosh, that you have to show me the drawings you did.
You know what? I will post my Kenshiro drawing in a link on this channel, and you will look at it.
That's great. Please leave a link. We all want to see that. That's great. That's great.
So yeah, I don't even know how I ended up just liking the style. I think a big part of it is that I got rid of that notion in my head, that barrier, that for some reason I put this barrier in my head that since I loved anime and like anime art so much that, you know, that was like the art style for me. I only wanted to draw that. I only wanted to reach that pinnacle of being able to draw draw Kenshiro and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
put that barrier in my head. You know, I didn't want to try all these other styles. Like Disney is lame, Frank Frazetta is lame, anime is the best. I'm gonna only draw anime. You know, and I think it's for if you look at the other side of that too. You know, you see people like that who only love Western art, and they don't even want to like dip into anime, right?
And I think that's sad. I think that's sad because it's sad both ways really, because there's such great art on both styles. Like, I don't know. I mean, there's like so many amazing artists that do both, you know?
Yeah.
But anyways. Yeah, that's so cool. You're interested in the North Star.
Dude, I watched I loved it. I had like marathoned. You know, back in the days, you had to go through IRC to get like to get like pirated anime and stuff like that. I'm not advocating piracy, by the ways, but that was how it was in the dark ages of the internet, right? You had to go on IRC,
right,
and you had to whisper like a bot, and the bot would like transfer a file to you. This is like so many red flags for internet like security and stuff, right? And you'd have to get the file, and it would transfer you at like, I was on like 56K back then, and it was just so slow. But I got like all like 200 episodes of Fist of North Star. I watched the hell out of them. You know, they were just so awesome. I mean, looking back at it, the storyline was so cheesy, but like the characters was just like so endearing. You know, they had like typical redemption arc, like the heel turn face and stuff like that. You've never seen like, if you know a little bit about wrestling, you know what I'm talking about.
Right. I don't know. There's a certain appeal to like the simplicity, you know,
of shonen art, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, of shonen art and their whole like, I don't know. It's just so like, I don't know.
I love like the redemption of like the bad guy who becomes a good guy. You know, that's like my favorite archetype.
It's great.
Or like the hero who doesn't actually want to be a hero, but he has to end up being a hero.
I see. That's great.
Yeah, I love those archetypes, and you see them all the time in shonen. You know, like GTO, one of my favorite. Great teacher Onizuka. One of my favorite animes, manga, live action. You know, they don't make them how they used to. Rose tinted goggles kind of thing.
I think I gotta check that out. I don't think I've seen that.
If you haven't seen it, you should definitely watch it. It's so funny. Alright. So I'm just adding. What's that?
Oh, sorry, go ahead. No, go on.
I was just saying I'm just adding some like light values here to kind of like round out. I'm almost finished, so just kind of rounding it out. But go ahead. What are you gonna say?
No, I forgot. But that's actually like, man, this is impressive. It looks good, man. Like, and you were talking the whole time you were doing it. So
this is honestly the first time I've talked and drawn, like had an active conversation. So I'm glad I didn't just like draw like a circle with eyes on it and smile. It actually came out like pretty good. So I didn't prepare for this at all, by the way. I just, you know what? I always think the best way to, if you want to start swinging, the best way to do it is to go balls deep in, you know? PG-13, but just do it, you know? If you want to do something, just do it. What are you waiting for? Yesterday you said today. Just do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's very true. Just go for it. Just go straight for it.
Yep.
I don't think I could do that. The whole drawing and talking at the same time. So this is like, I don't know. In case anyone who's watching who doesn't know that's really hard to draw and talk at the same time and the whole conversation. It's pretty difficult.
You know what it's like? It's like trying to ride a bike, and if you ever rode a bike and talked on a cell phone, which you shouldn't do, it is so hard. Like it's not like I'm trying to get almost like falling off my bike when I first tried it out. My first time to do it. So yeah, it's definitely. I think it's definitely a skill in itself. Hopefully, I'll get a little bit better at it, and then like bust out some really cool stuff in the future. But you know what? It's just a start. And
the beginning.
yeah. So I'm gonna do one more thing, and then I'm gonna start ending up the video. So, Satoshi, if you want to plug any of your projects, you can go ahead and do so. If you want to tell people about your DeviantArt, what you have on there, what your plans are for the future, go ahead.
Well, I don't really have any current personal projects that I work on, but I'm doing a lot of commission work now, and my art site is you can go to my ArtStation or DeviantArt and just type in Toshi Jusan Go, and that's everybody says Toshi 13 Go, and I did not realize this at the time because I was just thinking of it in Japanese, and you read done, and it just sounds so terrible, but that's my name. It's Toshi and 13 Go, and you can type that up and I'll come out in the ArtStation or DeviantArt or whatever. You can check out what I do. I do mostly fantasy like stuff. So
yeah. I'll actually show some pieces.
That, maybe.
I'm going to show some pieces of him that I really like, I picked out, and then I'm going to ask you some funny questions, so I hope you're ready.
Okay, sure, go for it.
Okay, so one last thing, just going to put some...
Oh, that's nice, man. I like that
Thanks.
That line that you did for the cloak and stuff. That's perfect.
Yeah. So I think a big part of... So going back to like being discouraged and stuff is that I think early on I would start a sketch and I would be so discouraged about how the sketch came out that I wouldn't like take it any further. And I think that limited myself so much because I didn't even know what a finished sketch should look like, or what a finished piece of art should look like. So I was always at the stopping point of sketching, right? I'm like, oh, this is bad. I'm gonna start a new one, you know.
Oh, wow.
But now I like try to finish every sketch to get it to like this point. So I'm like, okay, I can ask myself, okay, what's wrong with this? Is the design bad? Then I would redraw it again and again and again, you know, until I get it right.
That's such a great point. I think that's if you just quit before you finish it, I think that's gonna slow you down a bit in your improving learning, because you know you always have the excuse that, oh, it was just a sketch, you know, I didn't try my hardest that time, you know, like you'll always be able to say that, like, in defense of yourself, like that wasn't all I got, so you know don't judge me, you know, like it's really just a defense mechanism. So if you push yourself until you get as far you can go, it's a more accurate description of where you actually are, and that will make you learn faster, right?
Right, exactly. And I think a lot of it is like foresight, you know. They say, no, that's what they say about hindsight. So foresight is like you already know what a finished drawing should look like. So what one of your finished drawings should look like. So when you're working through that process of working on a drawing, you're like, all right, I know it looks so bad now, it will get better. I know it will get better because I know I've done this before and it got to this point where it looks like this, right? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, especially starting off with just these like simple sketches, you know, and there's just there's like not all the fundamental things that make a piece that makes a piece look good is there yet, you know, like all the values read well, the shape design is strong, you know, that takes time, and things don't look good until maybe like 90%, you know.
That's true.
Okay, so this is my finished piece, and
it looks great, man.
Thanks. So I tried to combine like Tibetan, like kind of a style with more of like a Native American kind of vibe, and I don't know if you can tell, but on her collar she kind of has like a Mandarin kind of collar thing, so that's where I got that from, and that's the character. I haven't named her yet, but I like to give my characters names because it kind of like you can like give a person a name, and you look at the character, and you look at the name, you're like, it gives you more of an imagination of what that person or that character might be, you know.
That's
Like
cool.
if I named this character like Christina, you'd be like, what?
Yeah, that's true. It doesn't really fit. It
Right?
doesn't fit. It,
Okay, so
I mean, like,
so actually, Satoshi is not an anime artist. Surprisingly, he may be
yes,
Japanese, but
surprisingly.
he doesn't draw anime. He actually is a reverse Japanese. What I like to call it reverse weeaboo. He totally draws like westernized, like awesome westernized stuff. Like just imagine in your head D&D, you know, like Dungeons and Dragons, Baldur's Gate, Icewind Dale. We're gonna go dungeon diving, dwarves, orcs, elves, all that stuff. So I picked out some of my favorite pieces of his, and I'm gonna put this. Actually, this one. So I want to talk about this one. I really like this one. So what were you thinking when you were doing this piece?
Oh, this piece actually, this piece is, it was at this time where I was just like, you know what, okay, you gotta forgive me because I was kind of conceited, but you know, like, I really want to actually at the gathering, and this piece was made for a portfolio for that.
Oh,
so
for
I
sure.
did try, so like, trying, but like, the idea behind this piece is that this guy is going through a spell of birdification. You know, they're making him into a bird, and he was a normal human, but they're sort of turning him into this bird. And there's these guys wearing these creepy helmets, and they're, you know, all part of this, I don't know, cult or something that is making this kind of bird. So that's the story behind this one.
Okay, that's cool because I see that their helmets are like kind of like bird faces.
Yeah, that's very very culty.
Yeah, I actually really like this because this is something you could see as like a splash art for like a fantasy game. Because I think your stuff is like at the level of especially like indie games, indie fantasy games, where their game might not be as detailed as like, say, what's a big fantasy game nowadays, like Divine Divinity 2.
Okay, yeah.
But like if I think what you should do is like you should cater to like this smaller market of people who are making like roguelikes, dungeon diving games, because those games are like yeah, you know what I'm talking about? It's like those games are so simple, but then once you put these images, they kind of like people like kind of build like their own world in their head, and they're like, it gives them more imagination. So I think you should I think after seeing this and after talking about it, I think you should maybe contact like maybe some like indie game, or you just put your stuff out, you know, and say I'm open for indie game development and stuff like that, or
like that could be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But okay, and I just want to add that some people would love to be turned into a bird. Just some people out there.
I don't know. I wanted to make it look really painful, and this because I just imagine like, you know, your anatomy's got to change like crazy for you to turn into a bird actually. So if you can see, there's like this big bone coming out of the center of his rib cage.
Yeah.
And if you look at bird anatomy, they have this very large bone there that the pectoral muscles attached to the wing. So you know, that's really big. Anyway, sorry.
Okay, so next one. So this one, I think you recently did this one.
Oh, just recently, yeah.
This is like my absolute favorite piece of like the year, because you have like a cabbage character. She looks like a tomillo. I don't know if you guys know what a tomillo is, but it's like a tart fruit that is covered in like this really thin skin, but for its head, it's an orange peel, and it's all rendered so well for the story, you know, and you can like tell this.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, this elf character is like peaceful, and he's like, he loves nature, and he's got a dog, you know. So what I really want to say about this piece, what I really liked about it, is that okay, I love Icewind Dale, I love Baldur's Gate, I love those Black Isle games, you know. This like totally took me back to playing those games as a kid. You know, so
Uh,
can you go through like your process of why you drew this and then how you came up with the idea?
this is I'm glad that it brought up some good memories, but this is like for a person and that average character you're saying is like it's an actual D&D character, which is called Elite Fleshi. If anybody wants to look that up, it's a really cute character. But yeah, the person asked me to depict somebody with sitting under a tree. This guy's supposed to be half elf. I think that's why he can have a little bit of stubble and facial hair.
That's a
but,
good addition. Yeah.
yeah, pretty telling. And he with his companion wolf and this little robin as well that he apparently turned from a rat into this robin, and he just wanted to be in a forest setting where they're kind of resting from their travels and stuff like that. That's kind of the backstory behind it. And I think it came out this well. I'm happy that it came out this well as well. So
All right.
That's the backstory.
Because I really like your painting style, where it's like you kind of use a lot of the opacity overlay kind of style. Like you use opacity on your brush strokes quite a bit, and that's what takes me totally back to like the late 90s and like early 2000s, where like Baldur's Gate and like Icewind Dale was coming out, and you can totally tell nowadays looking back that this art was like done on like all they had was like one brush, and it was like the hard round brush, you know. Like you look at like Craig Mullins' stuff, he still carries that up to today, but it looks so modern. And I think you have like a modern version of what you have. Your art has like a kind of sense of nostalgia to it, and that's what I really like about it. And this nostalgia is a really powerful thing. I think don't underestimate the power of nostalgia, because WoW Classic. All right, I'm not gonna go there, but WoW Classic. That's all I'm gonna say. All right, so the next one I really like is this one. So same thing with the other thing. It's like one thing I really like about this is that it's a character piece. But it's a badass character piece.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's like an elf, but it's like dark fantasy. It's not like a typical elf where they're like prancy and like pretty, like how I make my elves. This guy is like an elf, but he's a badass. You know what I'm saying? So.
Thanks, man. For this one, I'm so glad that you get that from us, because that was really what I was going for in this piece. That it was, I didn't want him to feel like that, you know, those elves, like no matter how much they fight, they just look so clean, you know, they're like sparkling. Is like, how do they do that? So I was thinking like maybe it'd be nice to have a little bit more of a gritty elf. Maybe he's, you know, he's straight a bit from, I don't know, he's gone traveling, and this piece, I imagine, in the wooden shield, it feels a little out of place, maybe given his armor, but this is something that he's carried from his hometown, you know, his where he came from, and you can see that it's
like weathered,
pretty
right?
scarred up, so some stuff. And he carries this because it, you know, I guess it reminds him of his home.
Okay, so the last one I have is I love this one, because he's holding a spine. So, okay, and the thing is, like, all the accessories are rendered so well. That is why I like this piece. He's got these goggles that are, I think the goggles make the drawing. So can you explain your thought process through making this?
Actually, I really can't take much credit for the items inside this thing, because it's just, this is another commission done from the same client, and these were the requests that he added, and he wanted, the reason why the spine can be so long is because it's a demon spine, and it was just a really cool character, so I really can't take too much credit. I'm just sort of trying to bring this person's character to life. It's definitely fun going in there and rendering out those goggles. I'm glad you liked it, because that was like one of my favorite parts of the image.
The goggles, they definitely do something. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so that's it for today's episode. Thanks for tuning in, and I'd like to thank Satoshi for coming with me to this journey, this first episode. Hopefully
Yeah,
there'll be a lot of
thank
more
you.
awesome, yeah,
Yeah,
more
thank you
awesome
for having
arcs.
me, man.
And I'll have more guests, and you know what, same kind of thing, banter, and that's it. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. Cheers.
All right, bye.